The Longevity Lounge is proudly brought to you by AIA Australia, dedicated to helping Australians live healthier, longer, better lives. Welcome to the Longevity Lounge podcast. In this episode, we're diving into the world of optimisation and biohacking with someone who lives and breathes growth and improvement, both in business and with his patients. Meet Jabe Brown, the founder of Melbourne Functional Medicine, a leader in cutting-edge patient-focused healthcare. With a Masters of Science in Human Nutrition and Functional Medicine and ongoing training through the Institute for Functional Medicine, he stays ahead of the latest health research. Jabe's relentless pursuit of better makes him the perfect guide for those looking to unlock their full potential. He thrives on turning cutting-edge research into real-life results, blending the latest science with personalised, data-driven insights to help people become the best version of themselves. If you love geeking out on health, biohacking, and optimisation, you're in the right place. So let's get started.
So, Jabe, welcome to the lounge.
Thanks, mate. Good to be here.
Well, it's not our first meeting, is it? I know we've had a few conversations and I've started engaging you and your practice to sort of investigate my own personal health. So we'll probably leave that aside or to later in the podcast. But we'd love to know a lot more about what you're doing. I think probably a good question to start with is, what do you do?
Well, a couple of things. So at the moment, it's all about health span and taking people through in this age of personalised medicine. But I suppose to get to that, it's kind of like a where we've come from type thing. So we've been doing functional medicine for years now, and that basically is the idea of, people are unwell and you can't just stick a band-aid on them and fix them up and everything's fine. You've got to figure out why. And to do that, you need to really understand biochemistry and pathophysiology and all that kind of stuff, right? And then play detective for your health. And so we've been doing that for years, and it's data heavy. There's all sorts of testing and all this kind of stuff. And that's about taking people from a state of health that they're really unhappy with, or that something's wrong, and then moving them forward. In this case, forward is reclaiming it. But there's this whole other section of the market that aren't really unhealthy, aren't desperate to get healthcare, but want to look after their health and increase their health span, add more years to their life and life to their years, do both. And it's the same thing. It's about moving someone's health forward. They're just starting from a different spot. And it's the same methodology. It's get data and understand someone and what's going on, make it personalized and move them forward. And it's just this whole exciting space out there where people really want to get the most out of their life.
Jabe, have you heard of the HALE Index?
No.
Heard of that? So the HALE Index is something that the World Health Organization came up with. It's your health, age, life expectancy. It just made me think about when you talked about health span, which is probably a better terminology than longevity, isn't it?
Yeah.
In what we do. And so the HALE Index, they go and do a global report. Australia comes in at number 7 on the HALE Index. Japan comes in at number 1. So in Japan, the average person there has 7.1 years from memory of chronic illness at the back end of their life before they die. In Australia, it's about 10 years of chronic illness. So, it's I suppose we're in the game of trying to reduce that down as much as we can.
Yeah, I kind of think about it like you want the curve of your life. Over your life, you kind of have a great quality and want to go along. And what you don't want is for that curve to slowly drop off towards the end, and like you're still alive, but you're declining in every way, physically, mentally, and everything. And that's longevity, right? What you want is your curve to go up, sustain as long as you can, and then drop off really suddenly. And look, no one likes the idea of dying, but we all do it. And if you can sort of have a great quality of life and extend that period up there, then yes, you're getting the longevity out of it, but the health span, the quality of life. And that's, I think, something that people have only really started thinking about, or broadly, it's become a topic that people are talking about recently, and it's exciting.
Jay,
Mm.
what drove you to do this? I mean, what's your purpose? What gets you up in the morning? You know, you would have been a point in your life that you decided, hey, I need to do something different. What happened and what does it look like?
Well, everyone who's in the health space has got a personal health story or a good story like this. We've all got them, all right? So here's mine. I'm a young bloke seeing a girl studying commerce, and it turns out she was studying naturopathy, and I was like, yeah, I'm eating vegetables, potato chips, potatoes are veg. I'm doing all the right sort of stuff. Anyway. I went down through we went through a breakup, and I did all my soul searching, and all of this, what's going on, and I dug down, and then I'm listening to Anthony Robbins, and I've got affirmations and stuff all over the wall, and consuming all of this stuff, going for runs, and just like I was on it, and so I got interested in reading about health stuff. And it kind of got to the point where my mates would just about pay me to shut up and stop trying to solve their health stuff unsolicited. And I realized, I could kind of do this. And so I went off and, got my Bachelor of Health Science and started doing it. And it turns out that I just enjoy the challenge of solving someone's health puzzle. Like
Mm.
I enjoy problem solving, and a human being it comes in and no two are the same. And so instead of taking an approach that's kind of like, oh, you're coming in with a condition, here's what we do in this condition, it's okay, here's all of these things about you, and then start mapping them back and feeding in data. And I love the challenge of solving problems. But I get to, I get to walk away after work and feel pretty good about my problem actually having changed someone's life. And so that's kind of my story. But
How long ago was that? How long ago did that happen?
20 years now.
All right.
So it's been a while, but it's been a good journey. It's been great to see the evolution of health and people's awareness about it as well. Although sometimes I wonder if that might just be me in my own echo chamber. Like because I'm into it, I see everyone else who's into it. I just hope it sort of goes more broad and becomes something that everyone pays attention to, and that really is my mission.
I
Is
reckon Carl would probably echo my thoughts in this, that it was around that COVID time where we had these longevity experts pop up. It just sort of, all of a sudden there was this noise in the space of health span and longevity, and Carl and myself and a bunch of all of our mates would listen to it all. It became interesting, right? It just became a thing that wasn't around, didn't seem like before that.
I think COVID was an interesting space in Australia, especially, and especially in Melbourne, but everywhere. In that everyone became introspective as we all kind of became cooped up, and there was this boogeyman out there that makes you contemplate your mortality, and you're at home, and you kind of like you can't be out socialized. Like, what is the purpose? What's going on? And people start paying attention to their health. That was good for a few things, Zoom and whatnot being the second.
Mm. And Jabe, you mentioned you hope that society is sort of moving in this direction, and sometimes you wonder whether it's just your own views on it.
Yeah.
Surely you've got a pretty detailed perspective now, even based on your own practice, what people are doing.
So.
No?
I don't think so, because the people that we see are the people who are wanting our services. And so they're either people that really need someone to solve their problem, or there's someone who's already interested in health and wanting to move it forward. So I see the people that make me believe it. It's confirmation bias. And so it's a truth for me that people are interested in their health. Because that's what I see every day, but I just don't know. Is the stock price of McDonald's climbing, and are there more and more on the corners everywhere? And so I can't honestly say that that's so, but I think there's certainly a lot more interest in it for the people who are interested in it, which is great.
And those people, because we're sort of looking at quite a polarized societal divide now in many respects, politics and others, those people that can afford certain things do certain things, and those that can't don't. So what's your view on that? Is this something, is this functional medicine and this idea and obsession around our lifespan and longevity, is it sort of ring fenced by those that can afford to think like that because they can afford to invest in supplements and have some time to train? And
Yes and no, right? Okay. For all those things, like if you don't have the time because you're just trying to make ends meet, then it can be hard. If you don't have the money to be able to prioritize your health and for the supplements and all that sort of stuff, that's hard. If you don't have the money next level to do testing, then you can't make it as personalized as you can. But there are foundational common aspects of health that apply for everyone who's human, right? And everyone can be doing them, and it's just about your habits. And if people are aware of them and can start, stacking those habits into their life, then they can benefit from it. And it's none of those are gated. It's just if you want to get objective with things and really get the data about what's going on with your own body, then there's a very limited ability to do that through Medicare. And this is the big tragedy of health stuff: is our medical system is trying to. It's great if if I break my leg, something acute goes on, I want that. But there just isn't the money there to be able to let people test as much as they like, just because they want and they're interested in their health and moving it forward. So it's a bit of both.
This program is proudly brought to you by Ascend Performance Collagen Protein. Ascend Performance Collagen Protein uses the highest quality ingredients, is dairy-free and tastes great. Each serve contains 25 grams of protein and includes Tenderfort for joint and ligament support, as well as Gut Matrix to help support a healthy and diverse gut microbiome using a unique combination of pre, pro, and postbiotic ingredients. To find out more or purchase, go to ascendperformance.com.au.
We talk about time and money and those things that you mentioned there. Last year, the area in the world that had the longest lifespan globally was Monaco. So Monaco, the average person there lived to 87.1 years. And I sort of dug into it a little bit, and there's obviously a link between money and actually healthcare, but also stress and not having the level of stress because, financially, they've got plenty of money over there, right? And I don't know whether they exercise more than the Japanese that came in second, but certainly there'd have to be a direct correlation with stress as well with the whole thing.
You're speaking my language.
Oh, really?
So I reckon everyone's got their pillars of health, right?
Yeah.
For me, eat, it's nutrition, sleep, movement, and stress/mind. And connections there as well. It's just it's harder for something that you can work on habitually, right? And so I've gone through an evolution in my practitioner career. When I came out of college, it was just a truth for me that the most important pillar was nutrition. It's just obviously true. And for about 5 years, that was the drum I was banging. And it's great, it's important. And then I kind of realized, hang on a minute, everyone's just stressed. And what is this about? And what I reckon's going on is the bodies that we're in now are a product of evolution. Right? Evolution's been working on this for a million years, hundreds of thousands of years as we are now. And so we evolved to be in a world, in an environment where our stressors are physiological and resolvable and usually somewhat short term, right? Like we're running around in loincloths and the threats to our survival are like violence, cold, lack of food type stuff, right?
Yeah.
And they're things that you can do something about. Yeah. And so the evolution designed us to have this nervous system where input comes in being some kind of environmental stressor, and we produce a hormonal response, so stress hormones, that are designed to enhance our physiology so that we can overcome that stressor. And so lion jumps out of the grass, kick in adrenaline. Adrenaline enhances it diverts resources from future survival stuff to immediate survival. So you put more blood flow in your muscles so that you can run, and then you get away from the lion, right? But here's the thing. That getting away from the lion, great. You get away from the lion and then your body starts prioritizing future survival again. But like what sort of stuff's happening there is you literally have more blood flow in your muscles so you can run, but that doesn't come from nowhere. That came from somewhere. It's like 1/3 of your body's blood supply lives in your gut, 1/3. And of that, 75% you can move in and out on demand. So we take all that blood flow out of our gut, move it to our muscles, and we can run. We're running away from a lion now. Great. Who cares if tomorrow we get a little bit of indigestion because we didn't, prioritize digesting lunch? But that is a stressor that's resolvable. And in today's world, it's not about survive anymore. It's about drive. And it's on, 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 on. And so your body doesn't have a different hormonal coping system for the modern world. It's got the same hormonal coping system. And so you're late for work, or you've got an invoice or something's going on, whatever stress in your world, your body primes you for movement. And it's an inappropriate response if you're getting up on stage and speaking or something. And then we do this constantly and we don't turn off. And so what is happening on a sort of a biological level is you've got two sides of this nervous system. You've got your sympathetic, which is fight, flight, freeze, and designed for the stuff we were speaking about. And then you've got your future survival, your parasympathetic, and it's rest, it's digest, it's repair, it's detox, and it's regulate. That's like sex hormones and stuff. So in there, you've got inflammation and immune system and all of the bits. All of those are future survival needs. And what happens in my world is people come in and they've got a condition. Doesn't matter what the condition is. It can be rheumatoid arthritis or IBS or something, whatever it is. And more often than not, and not always, but more often than not, what happens is it's not that something's gone wrong. It's the body doesn't have the resources and the ability to pay attention to resolving this thing and getting it right because it's distracted by something else. Busy, caught up in that world of stress, and the body hasn't prioritized the rest and the digest and the repair and the detox and the regulate. And so something goes wrong there. And then as humans, and in the modern world, we're like, oh, that's a problem, we'll fix that. It's like, if your body didn't get a chance to do that, of course it's going to get it wrong. And so what it comes down to for me, for that stress thing, is you've got to have a balance between those two states. And for every bit that you're driven and you're wanting to succeed, and that's where the joy in life is. We don't want to stop people from doing that, but you've got to compensate it. And if you want to work hard, or play hard, you got to rest hard as well. And most of us don't. We have this thing, sleep when I'm dead. And we do cram as much as we can into our lives, and then, worry about all the rest later. And so for me,
Carl and I, we're big on, we do our exercise in the morning. We get it done before the day starts, which we've both done this morning, before we jumped in with you. And you get your adrenaline going, your cortisol. We do things like sauna and ice baths each week, which they're like the little bonuses on top of those probably 4 or 5 pillars that are most important with living well and living healthily. But what they do is they do regulate that adrenaline and cortisol, and you get this sort of high, and then you sort of come off it, and you're regulating this sort of stuff and giving yourself a break from what you say is just that constant sort of stress that comes into people's world where it just becomes all too much. And there's definitely a balance there, isn't there, between that world and just trying to have an offset to it. For me, the exercise in the morning, which I do pretty much every morning of my life, just gives me that sort of outlook and change of view, and just relaxes me for the day in a lot of ways. You have those shit days that you can have. It always seems a bit easier when you've done a bit of movement and a bit of exercise and done what the body has evolved to want to do, like you talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you want to get your cortisol levels up in the morning and then have them come down toward the evening and at night so you can go to sleep. But there's just too many people who are wired at night because they've got all those stress hormones there. And that's another pillar. Start talking about sleep. I kind of went through this evolution in my career where it started off as nutrition was the most important. Then for about 5 years, it was like, it's stress. Everyone's got this stress problem. And it's still true. And then I was like, if you're not getting sleep, then how's your body doing all the recovery? Like sleep's the most amazing thing ever. And then recently I've moved on to the movement pillar. It's like the whole muscle span concept has come out. You're aware of this one?
Yep.
Yeah. So
we get a lot of experts on. The whole idea of the podcast for Carl and I was to find out the truth, find out what is the latest information, what people think, like yourself. And so I've come away now, and Carl, you can tell me what you think, but I equally think that there's 5 pillars that are all as important as each other. Like I don't prioritize exercise more than nutrition, more than sleep, more than social interaction, or more than medical intervention and being clever with your health, like the service you provide. I think that they're the big rocks that lay out the platform at the bottom, and they're equally as important as each other because they all flow within each other to give yourself the best outcome.
Wow.
Carlos, what do you think? What do you think, mate? Are you of the same opinion?
Yeah, I just don't spend any time prioritizing. I don't think it's always been because it's not necessarily an academic interest. It's just a lifestyle habit. It's just been, I've been in this body intimately, as we all have, for a long time, and I pay great attention to it for a variety of reasons. And so, in terms of hours of sleep, and look, I rely on the tech pretty heavily, and that's my next question for you, Jabe. Actually, is I wear a Whoop band and I run Weltery on Apple, and you've got the Aura Ring right there. Those things for me sort of help me understand what to do and what not to do, without having to overthink it too much. If my scores at my HRV's too low, I don't do too much. If I'm, prioritizing sleep, I generally look for 7.5 hours, and I don't get into sleep debt, and I remain relatively healthy off the back of that. But I'd love to hear, Jabe, a couple of things from you. But firstly, the invent of tech and the direction of tech that's gone towards health is exploding, and they say it's a hundreds of millions, if not billions and billions of dollars going into this at the moment, and Whoop's been an incredible success. What role do you think it should play in our health?
I think it depends on who you are. So for me, I enjoy objectivity. I like data, and I use it to help figure out what's going on for patients in my own world. But not everyone's like that. And so I like to have markers that help people understand their body. But at the end of the day, what I'm hoping is that someone can learn about themselves and intuitively understand what's going on. And I say intuitively, but actually it's just through reps and experience, right? It's like that thing where people used to live in multi-generational houses and crazy grandmas doing her thing. She has apple cider vinegar shots, and she never eats, cabbage, and like whatever eccentricities are. And you're like, crazy grandma. Turns out she knew a lot about her body and her health. And you can use tech to help you learn that for those of us who aren't connected in with ourselves. And so something like Whoop or Aura, and that can tell you about your sleep, your movement, and your HRV. HRV, I think, is a pretty good proxy for helping you figure out the things that work and don't work. And so I don't know, have you spoken to your listeners about HRV? Is that something that we've done in the cast before? Or do you want me to give it
through different interviews, but mate, explain it though, for sure.
Right, Leachy, you and I, we've both, just say, got a heart rate of exactly 60 beats per minute.
Mm-hmm.
Mine's like a metronome, 1 beat every second, right? And 60 beats at the end of a minute. Yours has got a little bit of variance between it. It's like 1 second, 1.05, 0.97, 1.1. Whose heart do you want? Yeah, exactly. You don't want mine. Mine's got no idea what's going on with my internal chemistry or what's going on in the environment. Leach's is responding to the world. And so the greater the variance in between those intervals, the greater the ability of the body to respond correctly to a circumstance. And so if you take HRV, and the greater the variance it is, the HRV is a great all-cause mortality predictor. And so the higher the HRV, the better you do, the lower, not so good. Now, you don't want to compare your HRV versus someone else's. There's big issues doing that. You just want to compare it versus yourself. And so what happens is your HRV changes around pretty quickly based on what it is that you're doing. Have a poor night's sleep or a poor week's sleep, and your HRV is going to go down. Have some grog, your HRV is going to go down. Get sick, your HRV is going to go down. Sort all your habits out, your HRV goes up. So what I like to do is I like to teach people the right habits, give them a device where they can look at it, and so they can get objective and then get the feedback. They're like, oh yeah, every time I eat just before bed, my HRV goes down. That's why I don't feel so great. And then eventually they get it and they don't need the device anymore because they've just learned. But the other cool part about it is it can tell you, as the same way you're using it, Carl, when things are working. Today, my HRV is a little bit below my average. It's probably not the day to go and do some high intensity interval training. Or today, my HRV is quite up. Let's hit it. Let's go. right? And so I think the role of tech depends on who you are. Some people like to obsessively look over it, and I think that can be not great for some people, but for others, it's highly motivating. And other people, you just use it so you can learn and move on.
Like I looked at it the other day because Carl's right into it, and I had a bunch of questions for him on it. But for me, I understand coming from professional sport, like back in the day, I could run up a hill and you could say, what's your heart rate? And I'd say it's 162 beats, and I'd look at the monitor and it'd be 162 beats.
You've learned your
And
body.
he asked me a minute later, what is it? As we've rested, and I'd say it's probably 88, 89, and it might be 90. So I become very aware. But it's interesting that there is a direct correlation with HRV, and so I was trying to compare mine to Carl the other day when we were chatting about it. And like you said, you don't do that. You just compare it to yourself and understand when it's high, you're going well and your body's rested and feels good. And when it's low, you probably need to back off a bit. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's very representative. So my HRV range, Jabe, is 20 to 30 or 15 to 30 or 35. You know, it's very low in the usual standards.
Yeah.
But if I'm at 35, I feel 100%. Every time I've got COVID, it's been 12. And it's been 12, you know, as I lead into it, it's like, whoa, this is and I get COVID badly. Like it's not an easy thing to recover from. It's sort of 3 weeks. And then HRV would take 6 weeks to come back to normalization or to normalize. And people say, oh, how long should I have off, you know, when I get COVID? And they go, I have a week off. Well, I imagine that's very variable in itself. And if you have the tech, your HRV might give you the secrets.
Yeah, exactly. You're looking at something for your body. And this is, I think, the paradigm shift with health overall, right? We've gone from the age of no one really understands anything about health and just do whatever the boys at the gym are telling you. And there's, some stuff there that's good and some not so great stuff, through to the internet exists, and now you can find out anything you want anywhere. But that whole thing is about having bodies of knowledge and communities that feel a particular way is the right approach to health. And so you can get sucked into that. And it's like, well, here's just a truth that the right diet is carnivore. And then at the other end of the spectrum, the right diet is veganism. And two things couldn't be more apart, right? And for some people, this is great. And for other people, this is great. How can both be right? And I think the truth is there is no such thing as a hypothetical human being. We're all actual people, and our bodies respond really differently than someone else's. And so your job, if you're looking to extend your own health span and get the most out of your life, is to figure out what works for your body. And tech can help you do that, because it's not just about, oh, here's the right dietary or exercise approach. It's you figure out what works for you. The other thing, obviously, being there for personalized health is getting lab data as well. Which, is a whole other conversation.
Well, that's a good conversation to have in a minute. Outside of the pillars, Leachy, that you were talking about, and Jabe, you're the same. You have these pillars that you think about, and I just intuitively get it right, obviously. But the next layer down under that, those pillars, there's got to be some universal truths. So yeah, it needs to be personalized and bespoke for the individual, but there has to be something for our listeners anyway, where they go, yeah, okay, I'm cool with movement, sleep, nutrition, stress, connection. I'm working on those, but they're also in their cupboard eating vitamin D, creatine, dabbling in a variety of things because they think it is probably, I saw something last week, the 4 supplements everyone should take: magnesium, creatine, vitamin D, whatever the last one. Yeah, exactly. And there'll be another 4 next week. Yeah, we all sure. And now fish oil is another thing. So is there a layer down from those pillars, that those universal truths, so that we do know generally are healthy for people to investigate, if not engage in?
Well, let's go to that supplements thing for a minute, right? Like if you gave me a couple of hours, I could probably convince you to take 80 different things, and quite rationally, right? And then you'd wake up in the morning, you'd have a very expensive shopping bag of supplements. You'd wake up in the morning and breakfast is a bowl of pills. And nobody wants that, right? And so supplements can do a lot of stuff. It depends, I think, on, you kind of got 3 different use cases. One is what's going on with me and my personal biochemistry that needs resolving. I'm B12 deficient, I'm iron deficient, my mitochondria aren't going very well. I take B12 iron and maybe CoQ10 or something, right? Then I've got a goal that I want to move forward. So my goal is cognition. And so here's the stuff that there's data for cognition. Or my goal is for longevity. Right, let's do longevity supplements. And it's resveratrol and quercetin and all that kind of stuff, right? And then there's the other category. It's like you're a human being in the modern world. What are you doing with your body that is different than what it is that your body would expect and what it evolved for? And so a few things, say magnesium, that was one that you mentioned. So magnesium as a mineral is used in more biochemical reactions than any other in the human body, like 300 plus. And so it's a lot, it does a lot. There are two kind of big things that will resonate with most people. Magnesium acts as both a central nervous system and musculoskeletal relaxant. So your muscles, fibers are kind of like these sliding doors, right? Contract, relax, contract, relax. That relaxation is magnesium dependent. So anytime you are cramping, twitching, tense, magnesium relaxes you out. But also it's a central nervous system relaxant. So we're talking before about stress hormones. Well, all of your inhibitory neurotransmitters, which are the opposite to excitatory, meaning stress ones, your calming ones, all of your inhibitory ones, they're all magnesium dependent. And so the thing now is, by age 4, and I can't find this stat. I've never forgotten it since I heard it. By age 4 now, a child has on average been exposed to more perceptual stimuli than someone was in their entire life who died 2 generations ago. So let's say someone lives to 80 just for the sake of math. What that means is 20 times more perceptual stimuli on an ongoing basis. Because we're sitting here on Zoom, we've got cars going by, we've got pings and dings and screens and all this sort of stuff. A few generations ago, if you died, you were watching sheep in a field, right? What that means is you got all this stuff coming in. Your brain needs to make sense of it and filter what's important and what's not. And so in doing that, it's excited a lot, and so it's got to come down. And so you need more inhibitory neurotransmitters, which are magnesium dependent. So just by virtue of living in the modern world, your requirements for that mineral have changed. And so the same rules apply for a few other things, like omega-3s. You're not catching your kangaroo and eating the brains and all of the things. You're going to Woolworths and you're getting just the muscle flesh. And so where are you getting your omega-3s from, right? So there are a few things where just because you're a human, you should cheat and take them. And I think omega-3s and magnesium are big ones there. Vitamin D for a lot of people because, again, we evolved to be outside for most of the day, right? And now we're not. And so, vitamin D. But you can test vitamin D. You can test the omegas and whatnot as well, but vitamin D can actually go a bit too high. I never see it, and so practically most people can be taking it. But yeah, everyone's got different supplements that can work for them. But Carl, I'm pretty sure that I've rambled and gone definitely off point. What was the question?
No.
That was supplements. That was good.
That was perfect. It was that next layer down that people should think about. And I think anyone listening to this, they've heard Leachy and they've heard me sort of talk about what we do and what we know to a large extent. And this is more about tapping into the secrets and the expertise that comes with you. Why do most people come to you?
Well, again, we've got those two inputs. One, something's broken with my health and I need to figure out how to reclaim it. And that's what we've been doing for years, and it's playing health detective. And the second is I'm not unwell. I want to move my health forward. And for a lot of people, that's about health span or longevity, however it is that they talk about it. But I'm into health span, or it's for cognition, or it's for physical performance optimization. So health optimization, which is the same thing, it's about moving health forward. And what we do is we help people learn about their bodies and get data, do a whole bunch of testing to figure out what's going on for them and move their health forward.
What's the percentage between the two categories that you have?
It's probably 50-50, but there's a lot more work in the fixing someone up. Like it takes a lot longer. Like we do a 6-month program is the only way we work with people. But the health optimization thing is growing very rapidly. And so ask me again in 2 years and it'll be twice.
That's what I thought. Yeah, I'm surprised it's 50-50. So that's a good sign, right? That people are coming to you to enhance, not because they're broken.
Yeah. It's definitely changing, but I mean, part of that's because as a business, we're recognizing it and moving towards it. But it's really great to see, and I love it when someone comes in and there's nothing really wrong with them, but they're just like, I want to figure out more. What can we do? I want to squeeze the most out of my life. I love it. It's
Well,
so
That's
good.
like so Carl would have been like that with his health, except for his forehead. His forehead keeps sort of going
I was
up
about
and
to say, actually,
growing.
when you're talking about vitamin D, I mean, Leachy's seen apparently the estimates are he's seen enough sunshine for 6 or 7 generations. So his skin's seen 300 to 500 or 700 years of sun. Hey, so
That's
just
not
on a,
true. I'm actually part Indian. It's just my natural glow that I've
oh
got.
yeah, you look
It's
very
just
Indian.
genetics. It's
Yeah,
genetics.
the
Like my
Indians
sporting ability. Yeah.
Indians are actually quite cultured. That's the giveaway. Hey, so Jabe, tell me this. This is unprompted, but have a think about a transformational story. Someone that's come to you that's either been in one of those two camps, trying to fix something, or oh, look, can you investigate my health, and you've uncovered something incredible. Share with us a story of transformation.
Can I give you a really simple one?
Yeah, great.
I worked with a guy who had IBS, and he'd seen everyone. He'd seen everyone. He's gone off and seen the gastroenterologist, and he'd had colonoscopies and gastroscopies and all this sort of stuff. And his IBS just was no good. So I did my thing, and we did investigations, and we looked at it all. And in the end, it ended up being so simple, Carl. I thought, I don't think your body's even trying to do digestion. And you got this nerve between the brain and the gut called the vagal nerve, right? And it's basically send information, get the gut to do stuff. Traffic goes back up the other way as well. And I don't think yours is working right. And so we'd played around with all of the tips and tricks and the hacks and stuff. And then it was one piece of advice I gave him, one piece. I said, I want you to chew your food, each mouthful. I want you to chew it for at least 30 seconds, maybe a minute. Chew until your jaw is sore. And he
Mm.
goes, I did that one thing, everything's fine.
Wow.
Turns out, if you
He
inhale,
was a gulper. He was a gulper. Just
yeah,
gulp
if you
food.
inhale your food and then you throw it into your gut and you
Mm.
like it's trying to like digest massive chunks of it. It has to work a lot harder than if you break it all down completely and you send the signals to your gut to do it. And so I love it when someone comes in with something that's intractable apparently and quite complex, and the answer is like,
That's so good. That's so good that you come up with like that. Such good puzzle solving, isn't it? That you've gone everywhere and you've just come up with something so simple. It's not going to cost him a fortune to go and solve, and he can just do that through just a bit of like awareness around the chewing. Yeah,
yeah,
great.
yeah. It's always this thing when you look back though, and it's like,
Mm.
oh man, I did spend a fair bit of money doing testing to try and figure things out, and in the end, it was that one thing. In retrospect, you look
It's
back and you go,
free.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Oh,
And it's evolution, like it's evolutionary. Like you chew your food, right? That's like what you do. We just
chew your food.
Well,
chew your
now,
food.
Jade, my wife doesn't listen to this podcast, much like most people. But now she's a fast eater. Okay, she really things are gone before they hit the plate. So my daughter and I will sit down for dinner with my wife, and we'll look over at her plate, and it will be gone. What is that? Is she? What are your thoughts just generally around these? Because a lot of people are trying to eat quickly at their desk. They're trying to move on with their day. They're not spending any time thinking about chewing. What is the general implications for these people?
Remember earlier on, coincidentally, we were talking about you run away from the line, you take 75% of the blood flow out of your gut,
Mm.
right? So if you don't have that blood flow, then your gut doesn't do the stuff as well as it should. Like obviously she's still alive, it still kind of works, but what that is saying is that her body is prioritizing something else other than digestion.
Mm.
And she's not encouraging the body by sitting with the food and making it a mindful thing to prioritize digestion. And so the body will be prioritizing something else. So it produces less
Did she leave the table, Carlos, quickly after she's
Here we
finished
go.
eating? Is there an issue with the fact that she just doesn't want to sit next to you and
Yeah, I knew it was
have a
coming. I
meal?
knew that was at least someone will sit down with me and eat. Let's continue, please, Jabe.
Yeah, so your daughter, you got it all covered with her. But
Yeah.
so you're producing less hydrochloric acid, so you're breaking things down less. Obviously, you're mechanically not breaking it down, so you got large chunks going in there. Then your body's producing less of the acid suit to extend all of the proteins out. Then all that stuff gets jammed into the small intestine, and you have to try and break it down enzymatically. But the way enzymes work is kind of like dissolving something. Like if you put a tablet in, it's one of those fizzy tablets or something in a thing of water, you can see it kind of slowly dissolving over time. But if you did the same thing and ground it all up or just put a teaspoon of that stuff in there, it instantly dissolves, right? And so if you imagine that tablet is your food and that the water is what's surrounding it and you've got enzymes trying to attack it and break it down, it has to work so much harder to break that down than if it was digested into smaller things, which then means you don't extract as much stuff from it. It means different bugs can feed on it. And so there's a condition called SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. And you create more inflammation and that, you get your leaky gut follows on from that. Things move into the blood that creates systemic inflammation. And it's just kind of like this whole domino of stuff that goes on. And it's not everyone who's going to be noticing that they've got gut problems. But I think just the simple truth of it is if you don't have time to prioritize your digestion, then your body's not going to do as well as if you do. And at some point, what happens is people arrive in my office. They're like, oh, I can't move my bowels or I'm in pain or whatever it is. And you've got to work your way up and figure out what's going on.
Jabe, can we get into your process a little bit?
All right. So for the person who's not, massively broken and wants to move their health forward, what we generally want is we want to align multiple points so that we can sort of create a truth. So what generally happens is someone comes in, they tell us their story, their goals. Once I understand their goals, then I need to understand their current state of affairs, what's going on, right? Once I understand that, then we can figure out how to move from A to B. More often than not, what that means is let's figure out what's going on genetically. And genetically is just potential, right? And truthfully, in terms of where we're at in our understanding of genetics at the moment, I think we're kind of like toddlers. We're like bumbling around, thinking we're pretty awesome because we can walk around, but we're banging into stuff. And as an adult, you look at it and you kind of like having you're enjoying watching what's going on. It's an interesting show. In 10 years, we'll look back and be like, God, you missed this, you missed that, you missed this. You didn't understand how all these things are connected and they compensate. But we do have some understanding of genetics. So genetics give us the potential. The patient gives us the story. And then we do other pathology, and you can go pretty deep as how much do you want to do? You want to do microbiome testing? Do you want to do comprehensive hormone testing? Do you want to figure out metabolically what's going on? Just like a lot. What's going on with your minerals, your omegas, everything. Then that data comes back in and we can say, here's what's happening genetically, your potential. Here's what the data is saying. And here's what you're reporting as a patient or what your tech is finding. And when multiple of those data points make sense, now we know the threads to tug on and the things that we need to do to shift things around. And so it's about getting data and being informed and bringing it all together for a patient. And that's kind of what it is that we do. But obviously, it's the goal of the patient matters massively because everyone's got different goals. And so
is that like when you said that you deal with people over 6 months? Is that time frame for people that haven't got illness, or is that it's a different thing?
No, that's usually so we do 6-month program for someone who's got something going on and we really need intense detective work. For someone who's wanting to move their health forward and optimize it, they come in, we do a session, we do a bunch of testing, we do a health span physical assessment. You haven't had one of them, Carl, but if you come down to Melbourne, we'll do that and get you doing your grip strength and the balance test. We'll stick you on the body, get you what's going on with your metabolism, your visceral fat, and all that kind of stuff. We'll do that. Then the testing results come in. We interpret them and help make sense of it because it's all well and good to have genetics and to read through the report, but which parts are relevant? And so aligning those with the other bits of data makes sense. Then, Leachy, what happens after that is dependent on the patient and what their goals and priority are. Some people just want to know what's my biological age, and that's an epigenetic thing, or I just want a few supplement recommendations. Other people want us to hold their hand and start instituting all of the correct habits and get in with the supplements and whatnot to really figure it out. And that's the best. Love
and
that.
do you have a system where if they want to know more about sleep or exercise, do you have pathways for them to be able to go and work on those areas if that's something they're interested in?
Yeah, so we're a bit different in what it is that we do. So we have 4 health coaches. And so what we do, my job as a practitioner is to play detective and figure out strategy and give the right information. The best information in the world means absolutely nothing if you don't do something with it. And so we try and figure out what's going on for someone and what they need to do. And then we connect them with a coach and the resources. And so we've got a ton of resources to help someone work on that. And so if that's sleep and they need to education on sleep hygiene, or whatever it is, their sleep environment, then we'll move them forward with that and give them time with coaches so that they
That's
can.
the healthy habits part where you start building in small changes to go and give a better outcome through your health coaches.
Habit stacking. You start with one, don't do them all at the same time. Start with 1, 2, build your foundation. And optimization is interesting, right? Like people sometimes come in, they're like, oh, I want to live to 110. Great, love that. And I want to be doing this and I want to be doing that. And they come in and they're taking all of the latest in the way of supplements. They're taking NMN and NR and all of this.
Resveratrol and
Yeah. They're doing all the stuff. And I think the process of optimization needs to be, we've got to get a solid foundation. Let's build that, and then we'll figure out the bits that need optimizing over the top of it. Don't come in and optimize something that's got a super shaky foundation. It doesn't. It's like going and taking your car for a tune-up when I don't know the gaskets are blown and all this kind of stuff. Don't tune it. Fix it. Fix it.
My thing's always that you earn the right to go and do the 1%ers once you get the platform laid out properly and do the work on the areas that are important that we spoke about earlier, and then you've earned the right then to do, the saunaing and the ice baths and the resveratrol and all the rest of it that goes on top of the platform.
Yeah, so we've kind of got a way to think about that. We've got a survey which we're actually doing a research project on. It's pretty interesting actually, which is to figure out people's habits. And so we give them a score, a percentage of their possible thing. And so we break it into the 4 buckets: eat, sleep, move, stress, but then give it a total score, right? And so that spits out a percentage for us. And if someone's coming in at a really low percentage, then I know as a practitioner the sort of advice I need to be giving them. And then when they start coming in at a high percentage, they've got all the baseline stuff. Now we move on to the optimization protocols. Let's talk cryo. Let's talk altitude training. Let's talk red light therapy. Let's do all of the longevity supplements. Let's do all of the things. And that's where their focus is.
That's great.
You don't want to gatekeep someone and be like, you can't do red light or you can't do sauna until you've done sleep hygiene. It's like you can still do what it is that you like to do. You're just going to get less benefit out of the optimization stuff if you're optimizing on a shaky foundation.
So, Jabe, those scores, obviously I'm partway through the process, and this being the Bay State interview, I think my scores might have been in the low 70s, something like that. Without Leachy's, derogatory comments, I'd love to hear your views on that as a score.
Well, assuming that's out of 100, right?
It is out of 100. So the way that we do it is there's points for various habits that you get and negative points. And the place that most people tend to fall down is the negative points. It's they're overly sedentary. They're doing too much in the way of grog or whatever it is. 70 is pretty good as a score. Especially if you're balanced across the pillars. And so I would say that's pretty good, and you're a great candidate for moving your health forward and figuring out how to layer stuff on top. Like basically for me as a practitioner, what that says is I don't need to spend too much time educating about base habits and trying to institute change there. Let's talk about extending to next level.
And I know I've probably lost a few points from, they say, show me who you walk with and I'll show you who you are. And so I probably lost some points there from being on this podcast with Leachy. And so that's something I can work towards pretty actively.
Well done.
Thanks very much. Yeah, I worked on that.
Humor that we bring into the podcast.
So I suppose the last thing we've got here is the next steps for me, because we'll lead into the next time we see you will be the progress check after my epigenetics testing, I think it might be. Yeah. And then you'll be in probably, I imagine, a position to start talking about forecasting, habit stacking for things I need to think about.
Yeah, well, so interesting thing there. You're talking about epigenetics. Can I spend like a couple of minutes talking about this?
Right. Yes, please.
So
particularly explain what epigenetics is.
Well, let's do it. Okay. So genetics are the hand of cards that you were dealt when you were born. You can't change them. Knowing what cards you've been dealt helps you a lot to figure out how to play them. And yet, all of those cards are not being played all of the time. Your body isn't playing all of your genes all of the time. It's selectively playing this one now and then this one now and then not this one until this circumstance. It's kind of another thing would be if I hand you a CD. I mean, so I'm age there, but if I hand you a CD, can you hear it? Can you hear the CD?
No.
And no, you can't because it's not being played. And it's the same thing with your genetics. Your genetics are the code, and the music of life is your epigenetics. It's what's being played, it's what's being expressed. And so only in the last few years have we been able to start epigenetically testing people, and that can tell us objectively what's been going on with their health over their life, for one thing. And so that can spit out a biological age, which is always interesting. And you can have a dig at each other when you figure out what your biological ages are. And once we know what someone's biological age is, that's either validating or motivating, right? I'm doing wonderfully and I want to keep doing that, or I need to pay a bit more attention. And so epigenetics is one of the ways that you can do biological age. The other thing you can do with epigenetics is you can get a pace of aging. And so while your epigenetic age is like, I'm 50 and my biological age says I'm 47 or I'm, 72. Your pace of aging is a number that tells you for every calendar year that goes around, you're currently aging at a rate of 0.87 or 1.06. And that changes around pretty quickly. This is epigenetically based, so what genes your body's turning on and off. And so you can see that and you can go, oh, I'm trying this new health thing that I'm doing, and I haven't changed that many other of my variables, or I'm just doing this whole health kick, and you can watch your pace of aging go down, which is massively validating. There are a bunch
Jabe, have you heard of the Rejuvenation Olympics?
Yeah, absolutely. Brian
Johnson. And
yep.
so the guy who was leading that, when you start talking about the age of your genetics and what they're aging at, was 0.58 the last time I looked. So nearly slowing the cellular aging down by half. And obviously doing a lot of things. And it was interesting. So Brian Johnson and he's that guy that spends a couple of $1 million a year on trying to live for as long as he can, and probably give society and life, give the world ways of trying to live longer and all the rest of it. But there was a guy that came in who was 61 years of age, a guy called Dave Pascoe from Canada, who was not taking 200 tablets a day and not doing lots of things that you think would be pretty weird to do to go and try to slow the aging process down. And he came in number 3rd at 0.61. So that was around exercise and sleep, and exercising every day and eating clean and everything. So there is definitely a correlation there, isn't there, to slowing down the pace of your body aging with the pillars that we're talking about.
Oh, definitely. But the thing also is that it is also going to change based on your genetics, right? Like your genetics are the code for music. We still need to see what it is that's being played. Some people are just going to genetically have some advantages, but in terms of what's being played, what you do, how you live is the main thing. Like your genes are just the potential, the playing of it. What you do in your environment changes what's happening in the genes. Another way to think about it, right? Like is you've got a massive recipe book, and the recipe book is your genes, and you've got all these recipe possibilities. But you go into a restaurant at any particular time, and it's like, at the moment, here's the things that are on the menu. And that's based on the food that's available and the season that's there and what people's interests and demand are. And then you go back in 2 years and there'll be a different menu, different things are playing out. You're going into cold weather. Let's start turning on the genes to give us some cold resistance. You move into the Sahara, let's do the opposite. And
so the Peter Attias and the Andrew Hubermans and these guys that are the voices of longevity at the moment, they talk about roughly that 20% of your outcomes on your health and your lifespan is genetics, and then what you're talking about is what you do in your life and how you do it plays the part of the other 80%. So for people listening, because you can sort of look at that, and one part of you could go, oh, well, I'm screwed because genetically I've been given a bad deck of cards and I can't do much about it, so I'm going to give up. But when you start looking at 20% and 80% being what you can actually create in the future, mate, they're pretty good odds, huh?
Well, yeah, and here's the exciting part for me is that once you figure out what those genes are, then you can start living around them, compensate, change what it is that you're doing. You're ApoE4. Okay, I've got to start prioritizing my brain. It's a thing for Alzheimer's risk, but also it turns out.
I did that test. I actually did that one. Yeah.
Yeah. But it turns out that you can change your diet, your dietary intake will influence, because of that gene, will influence your probability of getting Alzheimer's. So you get your genes and you go, oh, that's not a great gene to have, but it's going to not be super relevant if I make these changes in my life. And so it shows you where to prioritize. Again, you got the card of hands, but if you can see it, that's a lot better to help you play than if you're just like playing, I don't know, playing a game of poker and you're just not even looking at any of your cards, you just play them randomly. You're not going to do as well as if you know exactly what it is that's going on.
Same for an athlete, as a professional athlete, it's very similar in that the workload that I could do compared to you doing Ironman might not necessarily mean that we get the same outcome. You might need more of swimming, whereas I need more of running to get the best outcome for what I'm doing. But as long as you understand that and you go and work in that area, then you get the best outcome in a result in a race. And what you're talking about is a window of opportunity to understand your strengths and weaknesses and then come up with a plan to be able to give yourself the best your best version of yourself off that information.
Yeah, absolutely. And that you're competing against yourself.
Yeah.
How do I get a better outcome for me? Bearing in mind, again, that genetics is just the potential. You also want to see what's playing out in pathology. Like if someone comes in and they've got a whole bunch of vitamin D SNPs. So SNP is like a single nucleotide polymorphism. It basically means a variant, right? And so they've got a whole bunch of stuff that says vitamin D is going to be problematic. And then you look at their pathology and the vitamin D is totally fine. Then maybe you don't need to worry about it. And so you look at it in context. But yeah, absolutely. If you don't know what's going on, it's a lot harder to figure out how to do the right thing. It's like shooting at a target while blind. You're not going to do as well if you can see.
Well, I'm certainly looking forward to finding out, learning a lot more about my epigenetics and anything else that you can teach me. Just a final question. Is there any hope for someone who lives in the past and has drunk way too much salt water?
No.
I don't know who you're talking about. I really don't.
Jabe, thanks so much for coming on the show. I look forward to the next episode. And for those who would like more information, it's Melbourne Functional Medicine.
Oh, it's been my absolute pleasure. Thanks for having me, boys.
Jabe, good luck with Carl in the future. I really hope it goes well for you.
Thanks, mate. I'm ready.
We'll just edit that part out.